welcome to today's quick first impressions of the San Martin SN0121, the titanium version. This is the one that we have all been waiting for. I ordered this one on Monday and it was delivered to my home here in Vancouver, BC by Friday. Ordered from watchdives.com, so fast shipping there. Very happy about that. My first impression is, the size is just about perfect for a mid-sized diver, wears really well on my 6.5-inch wrists, and of course I'll give you a wrist shot here in a moment. The finishing looks really good. I've had many titanium watches over the years. The best I've ever seen under about $800 has been the Casio Oceanus S100, which is famous for the Grand Seiko level of finishing. I no longer have that watch, but that was the only titanium watch that really looked like stainless steel because it was finished so well. This one is not at that level, but if you take a closer look, it's got some really nicely brushed finishing on the sides of the case there. It's got that nice polished chamfer that runs along the length of the case, and here on this side here goes over the crown guards as well. The bracelet color and finishing also matches the case just about perfectly. So this is all details on titanium watch that you don't always find at this price point. The other thing that you don't find, too pleasing on titanium watches is the bezel and the bezel action. This one has a really great feeling bezel. It's probably the best one I've ever felt. I think not probably, it is the best one I've ever felt on a titanium watch. I've had experience with the Citizen, the Barnacle Diver that recently came out, the Seiko Shogun that's been around for a few years, and the Mido Ocean Star titanium. All of those are about 3 to 4 times the cost of this one. So that's really saying quite a lot here, what San Martin has achieved with the bezel. So the knurling feels really good, doesn't have any rough or sharp edges that I can feel. And that gives it a really good grip. So I'll stop talking for a moment here and just show you the bezel action. There we go. Easy to grip, easy to turn, but it won't get accidentally turned, so there's just the right amount of resistance. The AR coating on the sapphire crystal is also good. It doesn't have that strong blue AR coating like you see on some of the other San Martin watches, so nicely done there. The alignment there with the bezel insert, the chapter ring, the 12 o'clock marker, and the San Martin logo looks all bang on perfect to me. I did read some issues with the stainless steel models not being perfectly aligned, so that's not an issue here. The size and proportions, everything on the dial, the size of the hands, the indices, the amount of empty space, the date cutout, all of the size and proportions, they are really bang on. They really nailed it. The date cutout, like I said, super legible, great size date cutout there. Sometimes their date cutouts can be a bit undersized. So again, the dial, just as with the stainless steel model, is executed really nicely. The blue color of the dial I'm also very pleased with. I do enjoy the shade. I did read comments, on Reddit about the shade of the dial and the bezel insert not matching, but to me it doesn't look too bad. It's not anything that that really stands out. There is a slight mismatch though, as you can see. That's kind of a subjective tasting for everyone. Now moving on to the cons, because it's not all perfect here. So the first issue that I had was when I was sizing the bracelet, I did have some issues with some of the screws getting stuck. It was a bit tricky to remove them. They would essentially screw all the way out, but I wasn't able to pull the screw out. So I just used some tweezers and I was able to successfully, eventually, I was able to successfully get all of the screws out. I did only have to remove one link to make it fit my 6.5-inch wrist. Now, the other thing is it does have the on-the-fly adjustable clasp, which, you know, it's great to have that feature. Unfortunately for me, and this might just be specific to my wrist size, but I was not able to get a good fit. Like I said, I took out one link and I have the clasp all the way closed as far as it can go. And it is just a little bit loose on my wrist at the moment. But if I take out another link and open the clasp all the way, then it's still just a little bit too tight. So I wasn't able to get a absolutely perfect fit. It's a little bit loose at the moment, and I have to constantly, you know, adjust my wrist and pull the watch back throughout the day. Not a huge deal. It's a lighter titanium watch, so it doesn't feel super uncomfortable. But hopefully they can add a half link or you know, expand the adjustability of the on-the-fly clasp so that everyone is able to get a perfect fit. Now, most of the cons that I've seen so far are going to be related to the bracelet. The next thing is the first link has a little bit of a play, so it's not super precise. It can move around a bit, and as a result, I think this side is a better example. You can see it is already scratching up and scuffing up the end link. And that's because this one has, as you can hopefully see, there is just too much play between the end link and that first link of the bracelet. So you got to be careful with that, especially when you're taking the watch on and off, that you're not rubbing too much against that end link, because it is titanium and it does easily scratch up. Some of the links also do bind up a bit. They do not all articulate freely, and that's kind of an intermittent thing. You know, there you can see a little bit of binding up between these two links. You know, I don't notice it happening when it's on the wrist so far. Only when I'm handling the watch do I notice that the links bind up a bit. I have seen worse, but again, you know, that is an issue. There is a slight gap between the bezel insert and the edge of the bezel. Now, I have to be honest, I read this on Reddit, and that's something that I did immediately notice when I first looked at the watch. Now, it's not a huge gap, but it's definitely noticeable with the naked eye. If I hadn't read that comment on Reddit, I might not have noticed it as quickly. So it's not unsightly, but it is a gap there, and I think the more you wear the watch, the more you're likely you're gonna get dirt and debris trapped in there. But we'll see how that performs over time. The case, as with, you know, just about every San Martin watch, at least in my experience, there are some sharp edges to the case, especially at the bottom edge and towards the ends of the lugs. That's just something that they continue to struggle with. Here there's sharp edges and here there's sharp edges. On the case back, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly smooth. So nothing irritating your wrists on the case back, just on the edges. And that's usually when it kind of digs into your wrist. Same thing with the bracelet. The sides of the links are sharp. They're not terribly sharp, but there's definitely a sharpness that you can feel. And again, you feel it more if the watch is a bit loose or too tight and the links are digging into your wrist. So that is something that you'll notice throughout the day. And I have read, you know, conflicting comments, I would say, on the forums about San Martin bracelets, whether some people find them sharp, some people do not find them sharp. In my experience, it's something that you are more likely to notice if you have, if you've got multiple watches and you're constantly switching up to different watches and different bracelets. And once you do that, you'll start noticing a difference. If you only have a San Martin watch and that's the only one that you're feeling on your wrist, then you might not notice the sharpness. You might just be used to it. But at least in my experience, when I switch around my watches, which I'm doing all the time, that's when I really start noticing the sharpness of the San Martin bracelets as compared to, Seikos and Citizens, Tissot's, other watches in this price point, Casio's, compared to the other watches at this price point. I would expect them to finish the bracelets a bit better, so they don't have that sharpness to them. Anyways, sorry about going on that long rant there on the bracelet. And the last thing I'll say is the on the fly adjustable clasp. If I could just go back to that, it does have, again, it also binds up a bit. So if I just demonstrate, adjusting it, I really have to push down on the pusher and pull the links, and you can see it's already scratching the side of this one. And if I want to close it, again, I have to really push hard, and then I really have to push on the links to slide them in, which is really tough to do with the camera in front of me. But it does work, but it just binds up. It doesn't slide in and out nice and smooth. Now, those are most of my first impressions so far. The other thing I'll quickly show you is the finishing next to a cheaper Heimdallr titanium watch. And you can see, wow, the strong blue AR coating, which thankfully is not on the San Martin, really stands out. But here you can see, and sorry, I just knocked the tripod a bit, but here's the finishing on the Heimdallr, and here is the finishing on the San Martin. Not even in the same league. San Martin's finishing is just much, much superior. That's, part of what you're paying for there is that much, much finer detail and better finishing as opposed to this Heimdallr titanium. So great brushing. Very pleased so far with what I'm seeing on the finishing. Here are the lugs. The polished chamfer done really nicely. Again, these type of details you don't always find on titanium watches, and I'll show you next to the stainless steel San Martin. Here is what the difference looks like. Of course, the titanium will look duller, and the stainless steel will have a shinier, more silver appearance compared to the titanium. But again, the titanium, the plus being that it doesn't build up as much heat when it's on your wrist, so it's perfect for the summertime when you want to have that lighter watch on your wrist. So I'm always alternating between titanium kind of in the hotter months, and I go back to my stainless steel watches during the other times of the year. And here's the clasp. Really nicely finished clasp. Again, amazing detail for a titanium watch at this price point. Really cool. If they can just figure out some of the details and issues with the bracelet and the clasp and the fitment, it's just incredible what San Martin is able to achieve. So the San Martin, the stainless steel watch, these are similar size. This one is about 135 grams size for my 6.5-inch wrist, and this one in titanium is 99 grams, also sized for my 6.5-inch wrist. Let's do a quick wrist shot. And there you go. Fits really nicely, feels great on the wrist, except for when it's, sliding around because it's slightly loose. But there is no such thing as a perfect watch. And what else do you guys want to see? I can leave you with a quick loom shot. If you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe for the full review. But so far, very happy with the titanium version. You know, this is what we were all waiting for. I'll put these side by side and leave you guys with a loom shot. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you click on the link in my description for the referral link. That'll take you to the Watch Dives website to order this watch. Otherwise, here is a loom shot. All right, guys. Now make sure you do check out some of my other reviews.